I feel bad for our mailman. This guy, I went to get food last night for dinner, pick it up for our family, and the guy was still delivering mail. It was like 7:30. I was like, bro.
I be getting Amazon packages at 9 o'clock, and I don't feel bad. That dude is just trying to hustle. It's always like
Amazon's different than like the postal service.
I mean,
one of our best family friends, he worked for the postal service for like 20 years now. Retired, he got his pension. Now he's in politics in the city.
that job, honestly, when the weather's right, like that's probably a fantastic job. Just get your head. The people who deliver my mail always, like, there was one dude who would always be bumping like hard metal music, and they like, and he like, my life in two pieces, my last resort, and then he'll like ring my doorbell, like, you got mail, sir. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Without a Roadmap. This is the podcast for product folks who don't know all the answers. My name is Yonas, joined by my co-host, Callie Cam.
Callie Cam, that is correct. I have moved back from Boston. I got my new license. I got a car. I'm officially back to being in the best state of California. Might be a little hype there, so I'm not gonna don't hold me to that.
You seem like a whole new man, I swear. Like the Cali Cam is very different from Boston Cam. It's much more, definitely much more happiness in his eyes. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy for you, man. Well, anyways, besides Cam, leaving us on the East Coast to go to the West, another thing is coming to an end, and that's the Mythbusters series. So this is the last episode where we'll be busting some myths and misconceptions that you may or may not have heard about product management. Today we got an exciting one just to kind of round up exactly what we're going to be discussing. Here are the three things. So first off, one thing that we hear often is that PMs should stick to their roadmap plan and, try not to deviate from it. We'll be discussing that. Second off, we'll be discussing the fact that PMs are outcome driven rather than kind of focused on, the entire process. And lastly, we were going to talk about whether or not PMs work in silos and kind of, lack collaboration across different teams. And I think that's going to be an interesting and hotly debated one.
I'm sure it will be. After speaking with a whole bunch of different product and customer teams, we have understood the beef that other folks have with product teams. So hopefully we're here to try to, what's the word?
Mediate?
Mediate and be the therapist in the room.
Product therapy. Should have been the name of our podcast.
And we can always pivot. We don't have a roadmap like the title suggests, so.
Nice. Let's see.
How about we kick off with the first one? PM should only stick to the roadmap and don't deviate. So I think there's two things that first come to mind with me is there could be a good reason to not deviate from the roadmap. Say you have a particular vision. I think this is a cool case for actually you to probably take the lead on Yonas with how Keith did it at Firecracker. So why don't you actually explain how that was done there, and we can discuss that.
Yeah. So one of the things that kind of slight distinction with the product roadmap at Firecracker was that it was, less so a roadmap, more a framework. I don't know where Keith got this from. I actually haven't done much research, but he imposed what he called the 3 horizon framework. And if folks are familiar with it, they could let me know. Otherwise, like, as far as I know, this man devised it himself, which would be impressive. In essence, the 3 horizon framework is a way to break down kind of a product strategy and vision in 3 different sections, and it's all kind of time bound. So the first horizon is, generally from, the present time to 12 months from now. And those are kind of the near term product strategy, like, goals. What do we need to do in the next 12 months? Horizon 2 would be focused on, years 1 through 3. So 12 months to 36 months. And then, the Horizon 3, hopefully, for the startups that make it that far, is focused on year 3 through 5. So the whole idea is that you're constantly making progress across all three. But when you're in a certain horizon, you might, focus, 80% of your efforts there, or 60%, and then, kind of divide the other efforts across those other two horizons. And the idea is that you're kind of constantly focusing across all three. So you're working towards your longest term vision goals, but meanwhile, you have a set of priorities that you're, spending the vast majority of your effort on. And, the hope is that, you have a kind of a more coherent path towards your long-term vision, while also kind of executing on what you need to do in the near term. And that's generally focused around, acquiring customers and kind of getting your product to a place where, maybe year 1 is product market fit, goal to product market fit. Year 2 is, growth stage. And then, Horizon 2 is growth stage. Horizon 3 is, hopefully scaling expansion. Yeah. So it was less so, focused on, specifics on a roadmap that need to be addressed, and more so, general themes that needed to be addressed, or specific user needs that needed to be addressed within each, across all three. And it would make up a roadmap, but it wasn't necessarily all right, in the next quarter, we're going to need to focus on these, 4 sections or 4 features or 4 products. It was more so like, how are we doing things that get us, 80% of the way through, some of our H1 goals, and 10%, or, 10%. Yeah, exactly. So
I think the way to relate it kind of back to like the topic of PM should only stick to the roadmap. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Yonas, but I think when Keith kind of always talks about how he did this stuff at Firecracker, I think he always mentions how he had a specific vision to reverse engineer the current product. Because at Firecracker, when he first joined, and then after you and the rest of the founders joined, there's a product already existing, and like the vision was to kind of sunset the legacy product and build a new one. So they had to reverse engineer, and they had to stick to certain items or like themes that you just mentioned on like the horizon or the roadmap, in order to accomplish that vision in the time frame of H1, the Horizon 1. So I think that's a good example of sometimes needing to stick to the roadmap in order to fulfill the product vision, no matter what, because that's how you think that's the best direction, or how you think that can change the trajectory of the business. Another case to say when that's not the best idea is, say we have the same kind of type of vision, or these things you want to get to in XYZ timeframe, but at the same time, you're onboarding a whole bunch of new customers. And say, for instance, you're onboarding new customer personas that you haven't really thought would be using your product. So say you, for our case, or just for example, maybe you're only targeting product people, only product managers to use your product. And then all of a sudden you get an influx of customer success personas or salespeople starting to use your product, and they are going to have different needs than the product persona. They're probably going to have to adjust the things in their roadmap in order to keep those customers happy, while at the same time trying to reach towards your vision. So I think it's always going to be dependent on the stage of your company, your product, and also how you're growing. So if you're starting to grow into other areas without even trying to, you may want to adjust in order to keep those customers happy. So you're reducing churn. And if you try to raise the next round of funding, if you're early stage startup, you have those happy customers to reference for your investors.
Mm-hmm. And, another situation might be, you have this huge enterprise company and you're a startup, and you want to the classic case of them trying to come in and request all these, customizations. That's for even like
more mature companies too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll throw you off your roadmap for sure. If you're onboarding, a massive new company, and that comes with all the customization requests, make sure your security's on board. If you're gonna have to make a tough decision,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not that it warrants really kind of changing your roadmap and altering how you're gonna kind of move forward on the product side. But if it's from a business perspective makes sense, then I think it's totally valuable. You just have to. Every company is going to have a different perspective on that. And, I think it's short-sighted to stick to the roadmap as if you have nothing else, as if, everything depends on it.
Yeah. I mean, I can see from like a product person's perspective is you spend all this time like developing the plan for your roadmap for like either the next month, the next 2 months, 3 months, and then like a big whale comes in, say like the biggest company, I don't know, could be like HBO Max, for example, just because I've been watching that heavy recently. Say they come in, they want to purchase your product, the contract size is going to be like $5 million. Obviously, your business is gonna
Drop everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like if your contract size is normally around like 15,000, then you get like a whale like HBO Max comes in, hey, we want to purchase you for 5 million for not purchase you, but purchase your software for a POC for 5 million. Like, of course you're gonna be like, yeah, we're gonna do whatever you say.
Yeah, you're going to sign them up and you're going to do what you got to do. And, I think most people understand that. And roadmap's helpful, keeps you on track, gives you some guidance. But,
Teams.
yeah, but at the same time, I would say that this myth is busted. And just about every PM knows that ain't nobody following a roadmap to the T. Next one.
The next one is that PMs are only outcome driven. I think this one is kind of interesting because I think while you have to be outcome driven as a PM or probably in any role you're in, to try to make sure you're striving towards the right goals, making sure you're moving your department, whatever you're responsible for in the right direction, you have to be able to reverse engineer that outcome you want to achieve and take the steps to get there. Like you can't just say you want to accomplish or close 10 deals and all of a sudden you close 10 deals. Like there's a whole bunch of things you have to do to make up that outcome. I think you can probably speak to that maybe a little bit better, Yonas.
Yeah, I think being outcome driven is like the ideal. As product people, we all like to think that we're, data driven and we're making decisions based on, evidence rather than, conjecture or just a gut feeling. But I think a lot of what we do is, especially at the earlier stages, is going to be, driven by gut, and you kind of have to go with the flow. And a lot of really valuable things happen when you fail. Yeah, ideally you don't fail, but that might be a sign that you're doing the wrong thing and it's time to pivot. And so I think only focusing on outcomes rather than the process and a lot of the learnings that come from the process is a little short-sighted. So outcome driven, ideally, but solely driven by outcomes, not ideal.
Yeah, it's kind of like a weird statement because something you see those people like on LinkedIn that are like outcome driven product manager or outcome driven XYZ title. Yeah. And it's like, what does that really mean? I feel like everybody wants to achieve some outcome and usually it's the best outcome you can think of, but like how are you actually getting to that outcome is the question I always think of.
Mm-hmm. I mean, outcome driven. Yeah, that's one of the, I guess is that a buzzword now?
I've seen it a couple times.
It's like data driven, but they're trying to be special.
Data driven also is kind of a hot topic. I've seen some arguments about being a data driven person or specifically for product managers.
Like pushback against it, or
yeah, it's like I've been seeing a lot about how you shouldn't be a data driven PM. It should be like a combination of science, which is like the data part, and art.
Okay.
It's like you're not only using like the metrics you see from those screen recording tools or like from like Full Story or from like product analytics tools. Yeah. You're not only using that to like drive product decisions, you're also using like your gut instinct and the skills you pick up as a PM, talking to customers, like reviewing what the market is trending towards, what's not in the market, what your customers aren't saying, but you think they need. So it's like the combination of both.
Right. I was going to say, like, listening to customers and like aggregating feedback and making decisions based on that's also data. Sometimes like, you don't understanding what your customers need, but they don't tell you. That's
exactly.
That's okay.
That's like
the creative aspect.
Yeah. That's like the art part where like they're saying something, but like you can kind of sometimes take what they're not saying and the feedback they're giving you and come up with a creative solution that is probably might be better overall.
Mm.
Because like
I like
they
that.
always reference like the classic case. Like if you told somebody back in the day, um, um, like the whole faster horse thing instead of being a car, the Henry Ford
Yeah,
example.
we would have
Yeah, they
asked
always
for.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
the example they always use, like in those debates, like where PMs or product is a combination of both the art and the science.
I think everybody says that because that's like the first page of some like product book that I read. And it's like one of those books that everybody reads. Like trying to read it, that one gets outplayed. Like can we find another like analogy for
We
like
gotta make a new one,
why product managers are essential. Yeah,
right?
that's that.
Going
Yeah.
into our last one though, the last myth of our 4-part series is
Mhm.
probably the one that we talk to a lot with our current customers and like our people we're trying to have purchase our software. That PMs only work in a silo and don't collaborate with other teams. So, Yonas, myself, and also all the other folks at Parlor have talked to like probably hundreds of different customer success managers, people on the sales side, people on the product side. This is about like the current pain points in terms of everyone like working together and collaborating. I would say the number one pain point we hear from folks not in the product side is that no one has any insight into what the product team is working on or prioritizing or what they're thinking of working on. It's like a black box where you just kind of
Mm.
have feedback for the product team and then they just take it and then you just never know know what happens next for the
Yeah.
most part. I won't speak for everybody, but for the most part, that's the common thing we hear.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, we speak with customer success folks like on the regular, and I would be on the lookout for the product folks listening. Like they say some really some really harsh stuff about their product team. So I would keep an eye out, watch
be
your
nice to
back.
your customer success people.
Yeah. So the most common thing we hear, like you said, is that there's no transparency, but it's also that product teams are difficult to work with because they have apparently their priorities are at odds with the customer team. So when you think about a customer success manager, they have customers and they're judged as a CSM. Their ability is judged based on like the customer satisfaction, like whether or not their customers renew, things of that nature. Whereas a product person, like you're more than happy to work on any feature or like try and build or fix something that you think is going to have a material impact on the business, but without understanding or without a CSM presenting evidence in a way where they can actually make sense of the problem and understand the business impact of addressing it, there's a lot of disagreement around what's important. So it's like CSMs like are trying to convince product people of that what their customers want is important. Product person's like, hey, I need evidence, otherwise I'm going to work on this other thing that I think is going to be valuable. And it's like, what do we do next? Like, how do we solve this? Like, you get Parlor. That's what you do.
Yeah, it's like that Spider-Man meme where it's the both of them and they're pointing.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
no, we should work on this, but then the other person, like, no, we should work on that instead. But yeah, it's all about like trying to really provide more transparency for product people's point of view to like everybody else in the company, because everyone is either trying to sell new customers on the stuff that you're building, or for customer success folks is trying to make sure that the current customers are having the most success and getting the most value out of the current product, and to making sure that you're building new stuff in order for them to either unlock more value or to reduce any friction that your current customers are having in their experience. And so I think PMs only working in silos. I would say that for this myth to be debunked, I would say that there's a growing trend in product teams being more transparent with their customer facing folks. I feel like there's a big push across most companies where that the goal is to have more features and things on the roadmap be driven by customers, or at least have customers have some input into the things on the roadmap or the things that the product team is prioritizing, just so that customers are happy. And then also the folks that are on the front lines in the fire with the customers on a day-to-day basis also have some good news to report to them. It's like, hey, the thing you asked about last week, we're now working on it and it should be available hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of the other teams, I think that it's pretty easy to debunk without product and marketing working together. Like, how are you going to have product announcements? How are you going to have, decently written updates and, blogs and, without product working with engineering, like how,
how things get built.
Yeah. How Sway? How? So, I think
don't forget our design folks. We don't want Jonah to hold a grudge against us.
I hold them under like product. When I say product, folks, design's under there. But but they deserve. They
funny
deserve
story about Jonah. One time, I was scheduling like a product meeting to review some designs, and I had you and Keith's calendar like on my calendar, so I can just quickly put time together.
You never need to add Jonah's name like calendar to book availability. I'm always available.
Well, what happened was that I only had yours 2 calendars up. And so when I did like the autofill based on like selected calendars, it was only the 3 of us. And so I set the meeting, and like the next day came, he sent me a screenshot like, wow, I'm hurt because he wasn't included on the meeting.
That
was on me.
Yeah, designers aren't in meetings as often as product people. So, that's a mistake that I think he should, look past.
We'll bring that feedback to Jonah in our meeting tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Our offsite, yeah. Cam will roll into the room on a laptop on wheels. Well, I think that's a good segue out of this series. So first off, thanks to everybody for listening. I hope this was interesting. We've got a new series coming up starting next week. We're recording next week. We'll see when it gets posted. It'll be next week or the week after. And Cam, you wanna intro a little bit about what we're going to talk about on this next series?
Sure. So for our next series, since we just talked about how talked about customer success, and that's kind of been a recurring thing throughout this series, always talking about the interaction between product and customer success. We thought the next series we do would be really focused on the whole customer success industry as a whole. And so we're going to be taking a deep dive into customer success, what it is, what are maybe the skills that a CSM needs to excel in that role, that function, and then also just going over some key topics that we think are probably just more interesting to us as a product person that customer success really tries to hold themselves accountable for. So I think the growing trend is like upsells, renewals, the daily interactions or weekly interactions with customers in terms of making sure that they're extracted value.
Should customer success live under product? Like
we can ask that question as well. And then there's a whole host of other topics we have ready to go for that. The cool thing about this next series is that we're going to have guests on for majority of the episodes within that series. So we'll be able to ask them and hear directly from a customer success person their thoughts on the overall industry, and then try to get some more industry insights based on some of the topics we choose, from like upsells, renewals, how a customer success organization is functioned, or how not functioned, organized in terms of the hierarchy, maybe what are some of the career paths, just for those folks that are in product or the folks that aren't in product, to learn more about the customer success function as a whole.
Indeed. So until then, don't forget to share, like, subscribe, tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your dog, anybody.
What's that old video? Like, we don't want you to hide your wife. Don't hide your kids.
Hide your wife, hide your kids. Do the exact opposite. We have metrics. We have metrics to hit on this podcast. So otherwise, they're gonna shut us down. So, no, I'm kidding. We do this. We do this because we love it.
All right. Well, until our next series, I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you folks enjoyed every episode in the Product Mythbusters series as our first kind of segue into the new show format. So we'll be back next time with our first episode in the customer success series. Till then.
Peace.